All right, folks, let's put on your cowboy hats. Let's go to the rodeo and let's yeehaw get into this video 17. All right, we are going from information to a trig equation. And I want you to pause the video. It's really important that you read this problem just so you have an understanding of what we're going to do in this video. All right, you have a general understanding of what we're trying to get to. And what I'm going to tell you is that this here is what we've been dealing with, right? We remember our amplitude. We found, we were given b and then did 2 pi over b to get our period. We remember that this is our left, right, and this is our up, down. I'm just going to tell you we're going to make things a little easier, and we're going to get rid of the shift, the horizontal shift. So you really should be answering with something that looks like this. Although on a bonus, you might see a shift in your problem. And that's basically a situation where 3 hours later, the temperature is at 73 degrees, where it's giving you something that's been shifted. All right, let's talk about the amplitude. The amplitude is the max minus min divided by 2. And that's max minus min basically tells us the distance between those two lines. You're basically subtracting them, and that tells you that distance. And then you divide it by 2 just to give you the amplitude, or this length, that is amplitude. Now period, we calculated on the previous pages by doing 2 pi divided by b, where b was this value right here. But now I actually care about getting b. So I'm going to multiply by b on both sides. The b's cancel, and I'm left with b times period is equal to 2 pi. And I'm solving for b, so I'm going to divide by my period. Okay, and the periods cancel, and I am truly left with just b. Okay, so our formula for b is 2 pi divided by period. I want you to get that down as well. Okay, now d is our vertical shift. And it's really interesting because what is our vertical shift for sine x? Oh, it's just 0. So as soon as you do a plus d on a sine function, you're basically lifting this midline up. And so that midline is the same thing as vertical shift. I don't know if you noticed that in previous problems, but it is true. And so really I just need a formula for my midline. Well, my midline is the average between my max and my min, and that's exactly what this formula is. It's adding my max and my min. Those are 2 items. I'm cutting them by 2, right? That's the average. So we're going to use these 3 letters to help us create this formula. And before we move on, we do have to think about, is this a going to be positive or negative? Well, we have to think about where our sine function starts. If we are actually talking about having something that starts at the midline and goes up, we'll know that a is positive. But if we start at the midline and go down, we'll know that a is going to be negative. So I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. All right, let's actually get to this problem. So the air conditioning in a home is set to go on when the temperature reaches 78 degrees and to go off when the temperature drops to 68. So I immediately know that my max is equal to 78 and my min is equal to 68. All right. During the hottest parts of the day, this warming and cooling cycle repeats every 40 minutes. So what's 40? It's my period. Okay. Assume the heating and cooling cycle can be modeled with a sinusoidal function. If the temperature in the house at noon is at 73, noon equals 73. Then write a trigonometric equation to express the temperature as the function of the number of minutes since noon. I think the other thing I missed here is saying that it's at 73 degrees and rising. All right, let's calculate a, b, and d and then talk about writing this equation. So our a is going to be max minus min divided by 2. That's going to be 78 degrees minus 68 degrees, which is 10. That's a 10-degree difference between the two. Cut that in half, we've got an amplitude of 5. Okay, so now for our b is going to be equal to 2 pi over our period, and our period is 40 minutes. Well, how can we reduce 2 over 40? We can divide both by 2, and we get pi over 20. And that's our b. All right, what is our d? That's our midline. That's going to be the average of our max and our min. So that's max plus min divided by 2, or 78 plus 68 divided by 2. And that's going to give me a d of 73. Now that's really interesting that our midline is 73 and we're starting at 73. That's actually really good news, right? That means that our sine function should start at the midline, right? Our sine function should start at the midline. And so that basically means we don't have a shift here. But also notice that we have been told that at the very start, it's at the midline and it's rising. So that tells us what about A? That tells us if we're rising to start from the midline, we are going to be a positive. So A is positive. So we have all sorts of information here. We have our A, we have our B, we have our D, and we have that A is positive. So we're actually ready to write this. This is temp is equal to, my A is positive, right? So I don't have to worry about making my amplitude negative. So it's just going to be 5. And then sine, then I'm going to put in my B, which is pi over 20. And we're dealing with time, so I'm just going to put a t instead of x, although I won't mark it wrong if you don't. I'm going to close that off because we don't have a shift. And then it's going to be plus my d, right? So that's going to be plus 73. All right, and that's it. We're done. I think we're ready to try one more. So when the temperature reaches 74 degrees, it starts to cool, and then it goes to 66. It goes on heat. So our max is going to be 74. Our min is going to be 66. And what else do we got? Our period is equal to 30 minutes. I'm seeing that from right here. All right. So what else do we have to find here? Well, we've got kind of the information from the problem. So we just kind of need to jump right into this. All right, so I need to find my A value first. My A is going to be max minus min divided by 2. That's 74 minus 66 divided by 2, which gives me 4. And then I need to find my period. Actually, I already have my period. I need to find B. So B is going to be 2 pi over 30, right? 2 pi over period is my formula for B right here. So now I just reduce that. What is a 2 divided by 2 and a 30 divided by 2? Basically divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2. That gives me pi over 15. All right, my D is going to be equal to the average of my max and my min. That's going to be 74 plus 66 divided by 2. And that does give me a D of 70 degrees. Well, great. Again, we're told that it's at noon, at the start of this whole thing is 70 degrees, and it's also rising. So we know we're in a positive. We know A is positive because we're starting at the midline. We're starting at 70 degrees, and we're rising. So our temp is going to be equal to, my A value is positive, so that's going to be a 4 from this. And then I've got my sine. I've got to put in my B now, pi over 15. Put in a T for time. And then I've got my plus D, plus my midline, plus 70. And there are going to be problems later where I say, solve for time. And I haven't taught you that yet, but just be alert that there are going to be further questions later on. That's it for video 17. Looking forward to teaching you video 18. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Have a good one.